So the question is, what is an 8th generation rabbi doing at BIF? Business Innovation Factory. And so maybe I'll start this way. How many times in the last, we've only been here, 32 hours or something. How many times in the last 32 hours did you say, oh my God? Many, right? I mean, is there one talk that you didn't say, oh my God, at least once? At least once, and some 10 times, 20 times? How many holy tears were shed? Right? So it turns out we're in this crazy moment. Everybody knows we're in this crazy moment of transition. That's like the joke that Adam and Eve were leaving the Garden of Eden. And Adam turned to Eve and said, honey, we're living in a moment of transition. And it turns out we really are. And one of the transitions is it's not clear what it means to be religious, where we're religious, and who's religious. The most religious people are the least religious people. The most sacred spaces are the least sacred spaces. The most secular spaces for 32 hours become these incredible, incredible sacred spaces. So one of the things we need to do is we need to innovate in religion. And I'm always the only religious, not person, but the only religious, whatever we mean by leader, right, in any of these conferences that I go to. And the first time I recognized that the sacred was happening in a different place, and we had this incredible need to really innovate in very significant ways in the domain of religion. And we talk about innovation in every other domain. I was actually at TED 11. Richard was here, and he called me up one day, and he says to me, Irwin, you have 30 seconds. You don't know who I am. I run this thing called TED. You have 60 seconds to say yes. I said, what am I saying yes to? He says, you'll close the conference, Ted. It's the first religion person that I've ever invited because I think religion is stupid. And you have 30 seconds to say yes. And if you don't say yes, you'll be making the biggest mistake. You now have 20 seconds. 10 seconds, and I said yes, and it was a transformative moment in my life because I watched about 800 people in a room. This was when it was in Monterey, and Dean Kamen was there, and this wheelchair that stood up, which I know has not gotten funded because it's very expensive and that's complicated, but it stood up because it has all this technology in it, and he put this, it was not yet accepted by the FDA, he put this 12-year-old girl came out in a wheelchair, put her in the wheelchair, and had her mother stand next to her, and the wheelchair stood up. I don't know if you've seen that. You can Google it. The wheelchair stood up, and the mother burst out in tears, and everybody got scared. We didn't know what happened. And Dean Kamen said, what's the matter? And the mother said, I've never seen my daughter face to face standing up. And 800 people, Andrew Grove was in the room, and Jeff Bezos, that was, when all those heavyweights came. And every single person was crying. And I said, oh my God. I mean, I don't mean it that way, but I said, oh my God. And I got up at the end and I said, look, we're finished. Religious leadership is over. We have nothing to contribute except to be in the conversation now. Because we are in a moment of reimagining what it's going to mean to be human. And that was TED 10. Now where are we? We're 3D printing organs soon. We have robotics, we have nanotechnology, we have mindware where we're going to be mapping the brain. What does all that mean for what it means to be a human being? And it turns out that the most complicated thing is that is going to be the hardware of humanity. But how the hardware of humanity gets used will be very, very dependent on the software of humanity, the interior life of humanity. And as we learn to compress time and space in the building of material objects and the creating and the controlling, and thank God, and I mean that really, thank God that we're learning how to do that. We're close, we're within potentially 20 years of a post-scarcity world. But how we use the hardware with that kind of power, it becomes incredibly important for us to have not only cognitive enhancement, not only physical enhancement, but to have moral enhancement. Because it turns out every single person in this room is psychologically and morally, relatively speaking, incredibly evolved. Amongst the most evolved people the planet has ever produced. And it's out of that level of evolution that we are creating this kind of of material control of the world, or these sorts of innovations that we hear about. But it turns out the innovations and the powerful innovations produced at this level of evolution can be used by people at this level of evolution. And that means that the technological cultural, or the technological moral, or the technological consciousness gap is increasing massively. So a teenager with a smartphone has more power to organize than a medieval king. Now, so that means either you organize like, he's amazing. I mean, it's amazing that you can. That's amazing. You're amazing. I don't know. Everybody's amazing. But no, everybody is, you know. I believe that we're living in a maze of grace. It's a maze of grace. I know it's not amazing grace yet. I know as a rabbi, it'd be weird to say that. But a maze of grace, you know? So how do we disrupt? And next story is my life got changed first in TED, and then I have to thank Fast Company, because they, right after that, wrote an article about me saying I was one of the religious innovators, and those two words had never been put together. And since then, in like 2000, that's like the first thing on my bio. So to see Alan here, I was like, thank you, thank you. And gratitude's really important. Thank you, Saul. Thank you, Saul. And thank you for like having conversations with some rabbi, you know? A friend of mine, Craig Hatkoff, one of the co-founders of the Tribeca Film Festival, gives me a book, an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. It's like a rabbi and a serial entrepreneur walk into a bar. And he gives me a book. It's called it's Clay Christensen's first book. And he said, I have no idea why I'm giving you this book. He gives me this book, The Innovator's Dilemma. I go home, I start reading it, I stay up all night, I read the whole book. I don't understand all the business stuff, but I do understand for the first time who I am. I'm a disruptive religious innovator. And disruptive innovation, and I know there's a lot of theories of innovation, and that's the one, you know, everybody has their own traditions, right? Some people are Hindu, some people are Jewish, some people are Christian. I'm a disruptive innovator, okay? And I look and I say, oh my gosh, that's what we need. What is the job to get done of religion? We've lost it. What are the jobs to get done? How do we make it how do we make the products and processes and services of religion, which mean in religious language, the wisdom and practices? Religion's just a technology. It's just a toolbox. And it can be used to do such terrible things, and it can be used to create such nobility. And there has to be something between psychopaths and saints. And that was what I think Gareth said, that was great. Between psychopaths and saints. It's called regular people struggling and wrestling with how the world is. And so what we have to do is we have to begin to be what I call early moral adopters, right? Disruptive moral innovators, disruptive religious innovators. And everyone in this room is already doing it in so many fields. But we've seeded one of the most powerful technologies to people for a variety of reasons are holding on for dear life. It's no different than a corporation, any business where people are holding on for dear life, even with the best of motivation. How do we disaggregate wisdom and practices from the proprietary ownership of the tribes and creeds and dogmas? How do we disaggregate? How do we unbundle wisdom and practices that are designed to help us become compassionate, that help us forgive, that help us become more generous, that help us become more compassionate, that help us have awe and wonder and humility? How do we disaggregate, unbundle those practices and those wisdom from the people who own them? How do we move Eric Raymond? I got to meet Eric Raymond. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a little crazy, but really amazing guy. Wrote an article called Cathedral and the Bazaar about code. It had nothing to do with religion. But I had this opportunity to meet him, and I said, oh my God, you've influenced me so much. You know why? Because we're moving from the real cathedrals to the bazaars. And just like religion, all innovation, so little innovation, real technological innovation happens, right? In the cathedrals, it happens in the garages, it's going to happen in the bazaar. It's happening in our lives all the time. And design is so important. That's why I love to talk to the designers. What do you think a mandala was? What do you think a Dharma wheel was? What do you think a cross is? What do you think a Jewish star is? What do you think a labyrinth is? These were all incredible designs of a product that shaped consciousness, shaped awareness. How well it worked, how not well it worked, we don't even have the metrics. And the neuroscientists in the room, and the positive psychologists in the room, and the people that understand social change, we need metrics on what practices work. What does it mean to meditate on a Corpus Christi? Does it work or do you become a bastard? What does it mean to actually go on Yom Kippur? Does it make any difference? Are you more forgiving or are you an asshole? No, it's very, very important. We need to know. It's very, very, very important that we begin to use the metrics, the capacity to really, and big data. Gosh, I was speaking to this guy. He's running this company, starting to run this company, Badge or something. It's in San Francisco. And they, like, amongst the many people trying to organize big data to influence consumer behavior. Well, fantastic. Influence choice. That sounds like a real religious job. We're always trying to influence choice. We can influence choice to the most minutest level now. What if we actually took 1 hour a week in all those big data companies and said, what would it mean to incentivize ethical behavior? Because if we don't compress the time and space that it takes to create good people, we're going to be in very big trouble. And I'm incredibly optimistic. But the big idea is we better create good people. Because all the regulation in the world and all the laws in the world are finished. They're not going to work anymore in this world. The seeing eye, EYE, that seeing eye in the sky, that seeing eye better become a seeing eye. In this country, the fastest growing demographic in religion is none, and that's not N-U-N. That's N-O-N-E. That's the fastest growing denomination. Over 30% of people under 32 have no religious affiliation. 27% of all Americans do not use clergy at funerals. The last thing religion was for was death management. They're not even using it for that. So what are people doing? People are taking permission to construct their own identities in brand new ways because we have access to resources. We can not disaggregate not only the levels that I was talking about, but we can actually mix and match. We can take a Buddhist practice that may work for one part of our life and a Jewish practice that will work for another part of our life. And a philosophical practice that will work for another part. And we have to begin to mix and blend and bend and switch. Which, by the way, the next generation is already. I have a daughter, Gabriella. She has an unbelievable 4 or 5 day a week yoga practice. She can bend herself in ways that, I mean, look, it hurts. And it's deeply spiritual because she has a flexible inner spirit. And she has a Sabbath practice. Last story. Today is actually, I know there's a lot of Jewish holidays. Today is a Jewish holiday. It's called Sukkot, which means tabernacle. It's a 7-day meditation in which traditional Jews build a temporary hut that's outside. Some people eat in all 3 meals, some people sleep in it. It's open to the stars. It rains in your soup. And it's a meditation, a full body meditation for 7 days on what is it that makes us vulnerable and what is it that makes us secure. Where does genuine security come from? And you leave your home and you leave the security, it's only 2.5 walls. A wind has to be able to blow it down, a strong wind. Where does real security lie? Especially as you begin to control the material world in ways we never could before. I have never worked on a Jewish holiday. I have never stayed away from home that way. And when Saul called, I said, gosh, oh my God, I don't know what to do. It's this holiday. And I really had to think, could I turn this reality, I guess from virtual reality, which is what the sukkah really is, it's virtual reality, it's an early technology, into virtuous reality. And I initially said to Saul, I can come, but only Wednesday, and I have to leave Wednesday in time for nightfall because our holidays start in the evening. And then I called him and said, no, I want to speak on Thursday. I want to speak on the first day of the holiday. Because the truth is, this is the tabernacle. And this is sacred space. And the way in which we are genuinely secure is by building connections and community, by having genuine and authentic conversation, by networking, by the amazing amounts of wisdom we heard. That's what we do in the sukkah. So this became a sukkah, and it gets dismantled, tonight. And then we really have to turn virtual reality into virtuous reality. I leave you with this practice. It's a practice that can only happen because of a cell phone. It turns out that I like the idea of having practices that use technology that change kind of the currency and the template of my day. So after 9/11, which was, the anniversary was just a little bit after 9/11, it was, I lived in New York City, as many people. It was very, very despairing. I had a lot of bitterness, I had a lot of resentment, I had a lot of fear. And I found myself, I don't mean it politically, but I found myself sometimes feeling like George Bush. And I didn't want to feel that way. And one day I was reading the New York Times. And the New York Times had final cell phone conversations. Those are conversations in the dearness of the vanishing moment that we could only have because we have technology. Cell phones worked. And voicemail worked, so we actually have the language. And I read them, and I was blown away because every single one that I read, every single one, was filled with love. Not one said, we got to kill those people. Not one was with revenge. Not one was in anger. It's not possible. How is that possible? Well, in the dearness of the vanishing moment, it's amazing who we can become. So I set them to a melody, an ancient melody, a technology, a melody that's supposed to evoke a sense of both hope, sadness, and hope. It changed my life to be able to chant these on a television show, because there is scripture and wisdom and liturgy all around us. There are faith healers and spiritual teachers all around us, but they're masked in different labels. They're masked in different boxes. So in honor of those, we're just so close to 9/11. So here's a melody, here's a 30-something. Hey Jules, it's Brian. I'm on the plane and it's hijacked, and it doesn't look good. I just wanted to let you know that I love you, and I hope to see you again. If I don't, please have fun in life and live life the best you can. Know that I love you, and no matter what, I'll see you again. Another one. Honey, something terrible is happening. I don't think I'm going to make it. I love you. Take care of the children. And the last one. Daphne from Brooklyn, a 28-year-old woman. Mommy, the building's on fire. There's smoke coming through the walls. I can't breathe. I love you, Mommy. Goodbye. So we have to make love and empathy the source of all our design. I once asked Ray Kurzweil, does God exist? And he happens to be my cousin. My wife is here, Dana, and we're cousins. And I asked Ray, does God exist? Like this, he went, not yet. Thank you very much.